There is an exit to the rear. There is another exit to my rear. With that, I would like to invite you to join with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to open with a public hearing on the amendment to the sign ordinance. This affects the public service or the emergency service institutions in town. The ordinance is limited to the 3 firehouses and LVAC. It allows them to put up LED lit signs which can be used to transmit messages during emergencies. We don't want a clutter of signs, so we have proposed that this replace all other signage at each firehouse. That would also necessitate that when there was no emergency, the normal signage, the normal messages from the firehouse could be shown on those signs. This, in my mind, answers one of the major things I found campaigning last year, and a message machine full of complaints after the last outage, which is a lack of communication in the town about what is available where there is dry ice, where there is water, when people might expect power to come back on. All of those things for people who are out of power and therefore have no communications with the outside world. Remember, a lot of this town still has no cell service. So take away their electricity and they are essentially isolated. That said, I will open the public hearing and ask for your comments. Oh, sorry, I will mention. I have a note here from ACOG, which I have circulated to the board, and it basically says that the sign would look better, and you can improve and embellish on this, if it were the same kind of dimensions, the same basic sign, in other words, split between LED and an announcement of where the hell you are, like Golden's Bridge Fire Department. But if it also had the ruffles and flourishes, which normally are associated with town signage. Almost every sign in this town which says you are now entering a hamlet or whatever has a, I don't know how to describe, Ira, how do I describe it? A flourish at the top and the bottom. They would like more ruffles and flourishes in this somewhat plain vanilla sign. My only comment, which I gave you at the time, was, yes, but where do I buy it and how much is it going to cost me? That said, I'll open the meeting. I'll open the meeting to public comment.
How are you?
Good evening. Introduce yourselves and let's.
Kirsten Conran from ACARC.
And Ira Sanchek, I'm also with ACARC.
And as Peter said, The Goldens Ridge Fire Department presented their sign to us, and we reviewed it. We could not approve it because of its sign, illumination, or appearance. Reading through the town code, in such a residential area, the maximum area for a freestanding sign is 4 square feet, and the one proposed is 24 square feet. For the entire town, the code prohibits signs that are animated or have moving messages, making the one exception for temperature and time readouts, and those are in non-residential areas alone. In addition, we found the sign to be too commercial for this wooded stretch of 138, so we sent the Goldens Ridge Fire Department to the ZBA for variances. I didn't attend those meetings, so I can't speak to that board's reaction to the signs, but here we are with the town board proposing an ordinance to allow 4 of these signs. While the emergency message portion of these signs will be vital during inclement weather, power outages, and road closures, these times I hope are held to a minimum. But even if we called it for 2 weeks, that these important messages are broadcasted, that leaves the other 50 weeks in the year for this sign, and residents and visitors alike to be passing it by. So we're suggesting that we pursue a less commercial look and follow the town's established sign standard. We'd like to combine the LED emergency message board with what we're calling the white colonial tavern signs that we see at Lewisboro's other municipal and public locations. Thank you.
Yeah, as Kirsten mentioned, I think our biggest problem with the sign wasn't really the LED readout portion. It was more what the rest of the sign looked like. It's a very commercial-looking sign for a quiet country road. It's more the kind of sign you'd see on 117 in Bedford Hills or on Federal Road leading to Home Depot. We just feel that kind of sign is just not really appropriate here, and it can be done better.
Who buy?
And we're,
Who buy? Because basically...
Any sign company can make a sign like this. The sign company that
for
Goldens
a
Bridge...
fixed price?
I don't know about for the same price. It would have to be priced, and it potentially could cost more to do it this way. I would ask several sign companies to price it.
The objection is not to the size. You're not objecting to the size.
No, I mean, the size is a zoning issue that needs to be resolved either by the zoning board or by resolution by this board.
And you're not objecting to the use of the LED.
Right.
So it's more the framing.
Yeah, it just should, to me, it should look like it's part of Lewisboro, and the sign, you know, I don't know if you've seen the sketch that I had done.
Yeah.
This looks like all the other signs in Lewisboro. You're basically asking this sign to speak for the town, to represent the town, so I would think that we should care what it looks like, and it should represent the town.
So what other signs in Lewisboro are you making reference to that exist now that we could?
Well, there's nothing, all the signs that we're referring to are really much smaller than this sign.
Sure, but in terms of the framing.
There's 2 signs right out here. There's one for the library, there's one for town hall, there's one for the police station, there's one for virtually every municipal building in this town has a sign just like this. It's kind of an iconic Lewisboro thing. Look at it that way.
I mean, I'm wondering if you could actually take this sign and kind of modify it out of the box by adding these
Well,
finishes.
and that's what we're proposing.
Which might be
that sign, it'd be a metal sign, so it's watertight, it's maintenance free.
But you could kind of frame it in the style that you're.
Yeah, so I would
talking about here.
start by asking that company for a price for doing that.
Okay, remember that this is money raised by volunteers. It is not commercial money. So commercial standards shouldn't apply.
Well, they taxed and raised this money for the fire districts. It's not.
All right. Oh, so you're saying that if it's tax money, that it's fine?
What I'm saying is
Hey,
it's
that's
tax
not a
money. It's
Kevin
not
Locke statement.
What I'm telling you is it's not volunteer money. It's tax money.
All right.
Fire districts are taxing districts.
So
That may even be a non-issue. We don't have pricing on the sign that you're proposing, correct?
That's correct.
And can you give us any direction as to where we could conceivably price out a sign comparable to what you've drafted here?
Any sign company, including the sign company that Goldens Bridge went to.
I mean, there is, if you like, a nicer sign, but it's
Cost
different
more?
in price.
Okay.
was 60% greater.
Oh, so
Which
I
is-
didn't see
puts
what-
it out of
I-
the-
Yeah, they didn't present what that sign looked like.
No, but I mean, I'm aware of it, and I know they did work on it. But at 60% greater, then it ruled it, that's why they didn't show it to you, because they're not prepared to go with it.
What's the cost of these signs, Peter?
10 grand for for this one.
10,000 per,
Yes.
so it would be 60% more per
Yes, it
sign.
was 16,000 for the other one.
Joel,
It's an additional
question for you.
$15,000.
The standard white sign that Ira was referring to, that's something that you guys make in your shops, right? It's just a template you have and you cut it out. Right. And have you seen this with the little, wave on the top that kind of mimics those white signs? I mean, could you see us taking a commercial sign and doing a little work to sort of dress it up so it
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the size of it too, because it's kind of a scale thing.
right?
It's 4 feet across.
4 by 6.
It's 6 feet across, 4 feet tall. It's much bigger than anything else
It would
we
look
have.
like our sign for,
Right. I mean, is that a reasonable thing to think we could do
I
that
mean,
in-house?
a more representative example would be more like the sign that the Lions Club has in front of Golden's Bridge shop, of the Cross River Shopping Center, or the sign that's at John Jay Middle School. Those aren't LED, they're a hand, you put the letters up by hand, but they're more the scale of this sign.
So this is
Oh,
actually
well
different.
taken aesthetically, it's a function of finances, I think that's what it's boiling down to.
So I'm sorry, you got a
I mean,
$16,000 bid from Stewart to make the sign look like this?
No.
No, I'm saying you could get it.
That cost
If you go on
10,000.
Stewart's
Yeah,
website,
I
they
have
make
seen
signs
them
that look like
for
that.
16,000, not
So
from
I
Stewart.
think, why don't we just ask them, can you
Don't
make it
care.
like this and see what they say? With the same display area being 6 by 4, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, your drawing has a display area
Is
that
that-
seems to
is
be
that not
bisected.
LED,
The
that
display
part?
area is 4 feet.
It's not.
But you
So
have
leave
Golden
that
Bridge
part.
Fire
But
Department.
that's the same
Yeah.
thing that Golden's Bridge sign has.
Okay.
Their sign also has only this part
I
here
would
with
think
the
they
stars and
they
stripes.
do whatever you want there.
Right here? That's
Part-
the
this part
LED
that's
readout.
not LED.
This
I
is
don't.
just a sign that says Golden's Bridge, and these are illuminated letters, internally illuminated. Very commercial approach.
Then what's 60% more? What were you making reference to, Peter, in terms of being 60%?
A second bid. they
It's just
got.
2 bids that they got.
They
There's
got
no-
2 bids. They went with the lower of the 2 bids.
But we never saw
Frank's
it.
right. Go
Just
back,
ask
see
them
if
to make
they-
it
see
look
if
like
they can
this
make
and
it
see what
look
they
like-
say.
yeah.
I mean, why don't
They
we-
can come in at the same price and it's
We're
aesthetically
debating
more
with-
pleasing.
We're debating with no information. Why don't we
Right,
find out
I
how much it
agree.
costs?
I think a lot of the question is, you want this sign for 3 other locations. Do you want all these signs to look the same? Do you want
That will be up
each
to the
location-
people paying for them to some extent.
Well, we get to set the rules on that, so why don't we
So
just
do you
decide, ask them how much it's gonna cost, then we can have an intelligent discussion. Right now, we're talking with no information. We need significant information, and that's how much would it cost to satisfy a CARC as opposed to, and if it's prohibitive, then we have to have the next part of the discussion. If it's not prohibitive, then they can just do it.
All right.
If they've only got 2 bids right now, for all we know, we might
It's a million sign
come in.
companies.
Thank you.
All right. So we'd like to pen this.
Janet Anderson, I have a comment, just having listened. I understand that this is intended to be mostly for emergencies, and
Yeah.
I've seen some of those signs along highways that are portable. And I'm wondering if that might be a consideration, that this be something that be put out when, I don't know the complexity of that, but if this could be something that could be put out for the times when there's an emergency, again, along highways, sometimes they have them on trailers. And maybe that would be both affordable and, functionally, we could overlook the aesthetics when it's really needed, and the rest of the time it's hidden behind the garage.
So
or
they'd
something.
have 2 signs.
You're saying in lieu of the permanent,
Yeah, I think right now, most of them have a permanent sign that says fire department. So then have a portable one that comes out. I don't know, and I obviously haven't costed it out, but it just might be both affordable and So I just wanted to suggest that from, as I sat here and listened. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's some logic to that, but I really like the idea of it as a full-time communications device, because we have a terrible problem with communication in Lewisboro because it's so physically spread out. You know, we have seniors who are not on the internet or whatever. You can have, you know, when it's election time, say polls open from whatever to whatever. If there's some special event going on, it's just be a big plus for us, I think. So as logical as that sort of sounded, I'd like to have it as an all-year thing. So, to what extent does the discussion about the aesthetics of the sign affect the code? Right now, the code is just written to sort of allow basically anything.
One particular sign, and how do we would have to incorporate that, if the board was so inclined, into the language of the code.
We had originally written this so that it did not designate a particular sign.
Right, which you can't do.
Okay, then my sense is that it is on hold until we were talking about the ACARC's proposal that we would do our best to try and make this thing look something along the lines of the sort of standard white signs that we have in all our municipal
Now, is
buildings.
ACARC going to go out and do this work or not? Are you going to go out and find a way of accomplishing your objective? What?
So when's the public hearing?
You're in it.
Oh, we're in the public hearing.
Jump in there.
So it's still public comment right now?
Yeah.
Or do you want us to?
Why don't we have the fire department do it?
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, it would depend on how we're going to end up doing this legislation. I mean, is it going to be that they're permitted, but they still need to get approval as far as if it's in a special character district, I would think, or depending on what other board still has influence on this. I think what we're saying is that they are permitted use, right? I mean, Anthony, correct me.
Yes, the permitted use and a permitted size that differs from the size already in the code.
Exactly.
What ACARC's saying is, should you add an aesthetic quality to that too, and say it should be consistent with the design of the rest of the town facility signs, something along those lines with the little swirl at the top and the bottom and those types of things. And the question was, how much does that cost?
Well, I think it depends on where the firehouse is. I mean, if the firehouse is in a special character district, they would still fall underneath the jurisdiction of ACARC in that sense of having to do that. If they're not in a special character district, why should we subject them to something additional that nobody else in that district is responsible for?
By sheer chance, none of them are in special character districts except expulsion.
All commercial districts.
Is it all commercial? But it would be
All commercial signage, I know.
But as far as having to make
the
it,
whole problem.
no, that wasn't.
I'm going to send them an email from here right now.
No, that wasn't what prohibited the sign, though. That wasn't what prohibited the zoning order. It was prohibited because of the size. Yeah. Yeah. So then wait a minute. So wait.
I really don't know.
If ACARC still has responsibility for all signage, I know it's any commercial signage at all, then why is this even a discussion? Because then they would still be able to make their suggestions on whether or not that would have to be.
Because right now
I don't know what they're enforced, but they were an advisory board.
This takes them out of zoning board, is what this would accomplish. They don't have to go there for a size
variance.
up to this
Exactly.
size,
Right, up to this
or
size.
this type of sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about the look?
it exempts them from the sign code, right?
Well,
Yes, I mean, that was
But
the intention, to just simply
is there
exempt.
still other places in the code?
So
Exempting
be
them from the
exempt
sign
from the
code.
provisions of this chapter regarding the type of sign and area of the sign to be placed upon the property of such emergency service
Because there could be
organization,
other
subject to restrictions
places
set forth herein. So we put our own restrictions in here, one of which would then be receive ACARC approval for the aesthetics of the sign, however we want to word it, style of the sign, because that's the one quality we don't reference in this chapter at all as written. It's just a size and a particular type, meaning LED display, flashing light, moving, however it's.
Anthony, why can't we vote on it then? Why, if we're only talking about the aesthetics, why can't we're in agreement as to size, and that they would be LED, we have no opposition or objection. I think we're all in agreement, I don't want to speak for everybody. And then, defer the aesthetics and determine
if you vote this in,
jurisdictionally where the ultimate
No, but we
authority
could
lies.
make it, but the idea is we could close the public hearing, we could alter the language and vote on it. That's
Yes.
what the public hearing's
Oh,
for. That's
alter
not,
it
sure,
to-
it's not as
You could change
dramatic,
the language.
it's not as
The
dramatic
size is
of
the
a
same.
change.
I
Most of
understand
the
that,
same.
but as Frank was pointing out, then we're voting without any information. We don't know if this is much more expensive or whatever.
Well, that wouldn't be what we'd be voting on. We wouldn't be
Right.
voting that it has to look like that. What we'd be voting on is that they would work then with ACARC like anybody else to come up with something to have it fit the nature. It may not be this exact thing. They might say, look, we can't make it look exactly like this, but we can put capped columns on either end or something like that, as opposed to all the other woodwork on it. I don't know if it's feasible or not.
Yeah, did we say anything here about them being LED or animated or anything like that?
No, we exempt them from the provision that says you can't be LED or animated.
But we wouldn't, I know where Frank's going, we wouldn't want to put
Sounds
ourselves in a
good.
position where then they said it couldn't be animated.
Right, because that's exactly what we want it to be.
Yeah, I
Well, no,
would
they
rather
can be
box
animated
it
under
in.
here. Okay, if we
This is
refer
acceptable
to,
to ACARC now, I think the safest thing is to say, let's find out if this is feasible. It's, $300 more, shouldn't be a big deal. It's just some finials.
And you're
on this
saying
stuff.
do that before we enact the
Well, then
ordinance?
we're all comfortable
I don't
with
think
it.
it's our purview to judge on price, and I think that I think goes out of our, I think what we're looking to do is an objective of being able to allow the fire departments and LVAC and the town, if for emergency situations, because of the way we discussed this, to be able to erect such a sign. As far as cost and all, that's, if they want to erect that sign, that's their decision. So if we, from what we're hearing from ACARC, if we feel that the signs should be at least kept in the characteristic of the town, which is definitely a valid suggestion, then that's what we put in there. And then just like anything else, any of the shopping centers, then when they have to change their signs, whatever, they go before ACARC for what they have to do, and there's no discussion. Then they discuss, well, this is going to be cost restrictive, not, maybe we could do this instead. We don't want to box them in and say all signs have to look like X. I don't think that's, I don't know.
Why don't I propose that we adopt, well, after the end of we're in a public hearing still. Does anybody else wish to speak? I propose that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I propose that we adopt the ordinance, but that we include a provision that that the aesthetics of the sign are subject to ACARC approval.
Wait a minute. Yeah, but hold on.
You can't do that.
Yeah, they're not,
They say we don't want LEDs.
they're an advisory board. Am I correct? They don't give,
Yeah.
On signage,
but they're
yeah,
still
they do on
advisory.
signage, they're more than advisory. That's the issue. So if you say they're subject to, and they say we want that, and they say we can't do that, then they're,
I think we're
Yeah.
going back.
because they do have approval authority for the signs.
For me, I was really
Or we
like,
can give it to
okay,
I
if
can
this
see
is,
that
if this
section.
is a finite ask, if we can satisfy it, then everybody's sort of reasonably, okay, then we fix it. If you're just saying, okay, it's all up to ACARC, then they could throw stuff in that's gonna,
Well, we might, yeah.
sort of invalidate the purpose maybe, or the cost goes up to 30,000 or whatever, and it's
Or
just too many unknowns.
stalls the whole process.
Or it's just too many unknowns.
By the time these things are purchased and up, we want to be ready to go in the way.
I think we're
Well, we
limiting
need
it-
to have another public hearing if we defer it and
No.
change the
You've held your
language.
public hearing, you received comments. If you want to make changes to it based upon the comments you received or based upon the board's discussions.
We don't need another
you don't
public
need another public
No,
hearing.
we can change it right now.
Or, just keep the code the way it is and give this to the various fire departments and the LVAC and say, this was suggested, if you guys can achieve this, it would be, you'd make a lot of people happy. And then,
Okay, Dan, I'm not quite sure I
in other
understand.
words, that this has been suggested,
Yeah.
We approved the code the way it is. In other words, they basically have the ability to put this sign in, but this has been suggested by ACARC. If they can achieve this kind of a look with it, it would be better, and a lot of people would be happy. And just leave them to sort of make best efforts at it.
I'd like to see us expedited, you know, by the time they're purchased and erected, you know, winter's right around the corner. I think we need to be proactive
You know,
in an
I don't
effort
think
to
this is
get
a
this
major-
done.
This is not a major,
What if you
like,
just made an F?
woodworking
A, B, C, D,
project
E,
here.
F.
Well, that's what I would
It's
do.
pretty
And
simple.
in F, you put the sign shall be, you know, you can be vague. The sign shall be
extent
aesthetically, to the
consistent
extent
with
practically,
the-
aesthetically
To the extent
within the,
practical, consistent with the attached drawing, see, you know, or other municipal signage.
Yeah.
Consistent with the design
of municipal,
and
of
style
other municipal signage in the
municipal
town.
signs.
And something as simple as that.
All right,
I would
so-
say that's the way to word it and be
So
done
it's,
with
it's
it.
kind
So
of-
then they do it, they're under control of their own destiny, and if they wind up putting something that doesn't look anything like anything we have in town, the building department can write a violation to it.
You could put reasonably
Well, they
consistent.
need
So
to
the
show,
To the
Yeah,
extent
is that
practicable,
reasonable?
the
But I mean, if,
signage
Frank, if they just put,
signage covered by this section shall, to the extent practicable,
Yeah.
conform with other municipal
And then-
signage
Yeah.
in the town of Lewisboro, with the exception of animation and lights.
yeah.
if they come in and they say, well, that doubled the price, we really couldn't do it for it. Wouldn't
Yeah, but
that-
they can
wouldn't that-
still-
Wouldn't that trigger the practical?
Well, that triggers
Yeah,
the
right.
practical,
I think
Exactly,
it
the
would.
practical.
to the extent
But
practical.
that triggers the price would be, once again, at least
Yeah,
you're
you
keeping
got a
it
little-
within, they can do something, that it wouldn't be all made out of, you know, maybe the posts that would have been metal, now they're wood.
Exactly,
Exactly.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
I think they can put the caps on there, and they might even be able to dress
Control it,
this up.
exactly.
with,
It
you know.
can't cost very much money.
No,
to do so.
exactly.
I don't think so, Ian. I don't think so.
I agree.
You know, the black wrought iron, okay, they could
Okay.
probably work
Yeah.
that in there somehow.
I've
So
got a
Anthony,
s-
that'll pass muster, you think? It's a little fuzzy, but
Yeah, I mean, similarly, to the extent practical, the sign shall be, I was going to put reasonably consistent with the, or conform to the style and design of the other municipal signs for town facilities, something along those lines.
okay.
Because depending on the type of the sign, it may not be possible.
No,
I got
Something
it,
in the
yeah.
future, you know.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I wanted to say,
Now,
Yeah.
do we, now,
So
we
this
we
is-
run in a circle now, saying since the other municipal signage doesn't have LED lights, et cetera, I mean,
Right,
we have a problem
We could just put with the exception.
with the
of-
exception
Yeah.
of, right. Lighted display and, what,
And just-
animation, I guess?
Stylistically.
Well, with the exception of the type
And
of sign.
size.
I'm sorry, say it again?
With the exception of the type of the sign.
Yes.
Because type of the sign dictates all those things.
Right. Okay, so with that caveat, do you want to enact this legislation at this time?
Yeah, I would like to.
I
Good.
propose that we adopt the local law number 9-2012 of the town of Lewisboro, enactment of section 185-12 of the Lewisboro Town Code, with the caveat and exception at 185-12 subsection F, as described by council.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Expedited.
Yep.
Okay. I would like to move to communications. I've got a letter of resignation from Grant Gallagher, resigning from his position at the recycling center, effective August 18th, saying that he enjoyed his experience, which was his first real job experience, and offering to be of any further help he can be during the transition.
Thank you, Grant.
He did a good job of trying to make this recycling center work.
Certainly did. By all reports, he did a very good job.
Yep.
People were very happy with him, and we'll be sorry to see him go. But he's off to college, so which is why he's
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
resigning.
he's off for a
So
good
it's for a
reason.
good thing, yes.
It's a little more
Yeah, he's
promising.
resigning
Good luck,
for a good
Grant.
reason.
Thank you for your hard work.
Next item, consent agenda. I'd like to propose that we approve the minutes for July 30th and August 6th.
Second.
Wouldn't you like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
Yeah,
submitted?
why not? Why don't you do that?
Oh, the entire agenda?
Yeah, why don't
All
you
right.
do that?
I was just trying to do it bit by bit.
Yeah, that's why we did it as consent. We do it all in one shot.
Yeah, it's one,
I propose that a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, the police report is in here. Oh, yeah, I got it.
Got it?
Okay. All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to move on to unfinished business. Discussion of the proposed draft tree ordinance. This has been before us before. CAC would like to push us towards some action.
Hi, I'm...
Oh, sorry, Jan Anderson.
That's all right. Jan Anderson. I'm the chair of the CAC. We were before you on February 6th. I think it was a work session rather than a formal board meeting to discuss this. We did have a couple of questions, which we answered in a memo on February 9th, and we wanted to come back and revisit this because it is, again, a matter of importance to the CAC. So Jeff White, who's on the CAC, has prepared a presentation with, it's a CAC presentation, but he's going to be the face here taking you through it, so.
I wonder, before you get into
Yes.
the meat of this, would it be useful to sort of restate the, what's broken in 2-3 lines or less?
Sure.
Why are we here?
Right.
Because it gets into a lot of good stuff pretty quickly, but then we,
Right. The current Lewisboro tree ordinance only covers someone who wants to take 5 acres or more, greater than 5 acres of trees down. So it really applies only to kind of forestry operations. It doesn't apply, it doesn't have any control over steep slopes. And on the CAC, we have heard frequently from people who are upset about cutting trees that have been cut on neighbors' property, on various areas. So that's one source, is that the residents have actually complained to us and to others about that. The second reason is that there is a group called Environmental Leaders Learning Alliance, which consists of many of the CAC and Planning Board members in various northern Westchester towns. And they did a recent review and said that Lewisboro is the only town in northern and central Westchester that effectively has no tree protection, except for this above 5 acres. And thirdly, we were called out in a 1996 report as by a group that I don't remember offhand, but I can look it up, that also indicated that our standing among other towns was not up to par. And the CAC is really Conservation Advisory, it's our name. We're very interested in promoting environmental aspects of not only individual projects that we see, but sort of overall overarching items that might be of concern and might be protecting the town.
okay.
And
I didn't want to
for the residents.
anticipate the presentation. I just thought just to frame what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, so it's basically two-sided. We've had complaints from residents about trees being cut, and we've had sort of official organizations that have said we're not up to what the rest of the towns in Lewisboro, rest of the towns in Westchester are doing in terms of protecting the trees.
Actually, that article, that study was in the Journal of Arboriculture. It's by Professor Cooper in 1996. He didn't really say anything about Lewisboro's tree ordinance other than that it was old.
He said it was, the article actually said there were 3 of them that were lacking in standards compared to the others, and
I read it today. It just
You read
said
it
it's
today?
old. It just said, it doesn't say anything other than that it's old. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with being old, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to,
No, but I think there was something.
doesn't mean you need to be replaced. I think it was going to be there.
Today.
All right.
I gotta say, just right off the
There-
top here, with the recent storms we've had over the last 12 months, even to the most recent one we just dealt with, we've got a lot of issue with trees that need to come down on people's property, and it's not all dead trees. It's just better maintenance of public lands and of NICEAG lines and of private property lines. So I really am hard pressed to put anything restricting the cutting of trees at this point in time, other than if it's a historical nature or clear cutting. And that was the one thing I think we were lacking. And we had said that last time, that we were concerned about clear cutting. You know, I took a look at some of the other codes also. I looked at North Salem, I looked at Ridgefield, I looked at some of the other neighboring towns, and nothing is as restrictive of what we're proposing right now from what I was looking at. And I mean, even just more than three trees per acre on a single property. I mean, once again, I think if you look at a lot of the stuff that's out there, 5 acres is not unrealistic to have on there. It's really not. I mean, even if you look at stuff, I forget, I think it was some of the land trust things and stuff like that, I think 10 acres are some of the numbers that are thrown out there. So I think our major concern, I think steep slopes are an issue. I think we could talk about clear cutting. But I think everything else at this point in time, given especially the nature of Lewisboro, I mean, when we were developed, what was here as far as the trees, most of the tree growth here, you know, if you go back to colonial times, this was farming area. None of these trees were here. Vista was called Vista because you could see the Long Island Sound. So a lot of the stuff here is not what they have in Bedford. It's not the Bedford oak. It's not those kind of very established and historical trees. We do have some, and those should be protected, and we should talk about the protection of clear cutting. But when we start looking...
I don't think anybody on the board is in favor of clear cutting.
But I don't want to look at any kind
obvious.
of ordinance right now that's going to be onerous on any of our homeowners or residents right now.
I'm just curious about what in the current code is not working. Because at one of your meetings, the minutes referred to certain examples of egregious examples, and I don't...
Right.
What egregious examples? We have 2 incidents that I'm aware of, both prosecuted successfully, as far as I know.
Okay, so there's, let me just try to go back. There is, now maybe there's a different article, but I have read the article, an article in the Journal of Arboriculture, and it did say that the protective tree ordinances of Bedford, Somers, and Lewisboro were considered rated as weak or very weak. And Bedford and Somers did institute ordinances in 1997 and 2005, and we really drew on those as the standards for ours.
But what's not working in ours?
Okay, what is not working is first of all, you mentioned 2 that have been prosecuted.
Right.
Basically, there was nothing that ended up happening as a result of that. There was no real enforcement.
$4,000 fine before the planning board in July, I think it was July 27th of
Right,
2011, and there was a prosecution with a felony conviction, and it was supposed to be remuneration or some kind of recompense.
Yeah, there was supposed to be some,
Well, look, you
and
know,
there was nothing done. But let
well,
me just,
you know,
okay, there was another place.
We can't really change the
Right,
the
there's
criminal
another
law,
place-
and if they impose a felony conviction, I think that's pretty far and away a solution to the problem.
Right.
In
And
my
again-
mind, I think the most critical part of this is anything we can do to reduce stormwater runoff. This town and the quality of that runoff.
Go ahead. That's an interesting issue too, though. So do trees do
Inside-
that more successfully than other kinds of ground cover?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Okay.
need more than just a yes. I need you to cite me why you say that.
Because
there's specific, I have a specific study to the contrary, that other types of ground cover are better at it.
All right, but just let's go with the costs of stormwater for a second. Within this town, we're going to spend about $140,000 this year on treating, handling stormwater. 40,000 of the town's money, about 100,000 of the county's money, I think, which is also our money. You know, I mean, every single bit of this is tax money.
So we better be sure we get it right.
Whether
That's
it
what you're
goes
saying.
through the county. And I'm saying that we have got to do something to try, I see this as an escalating trend into the future, the amount that we're going to have to spend on stormwater. Anybody who puts up a building at the moment goes through hell on stormwater and significant additional costs.
That's all agreed. I think we're unanimous in agreement about that, no?
Yes.
Well, all I'm saying is I see a tree ordinance as one way of fighting back a little
Got it. But
against
is it the-
that.
But Peter, what I'm asking you for is it the best way? I'm not so sure of that. I don't see any scientific study saying that. It's mentioned in the PowerPoint presentation that it protects steep slopes. Does it do the best job of protecting steep slopes? If we're asking us to make law about it,
All
let's
right.
find out what the best
And
way is.
Peter, my comment on that is, if you do a sensible tree ordinance where possibly those items like steep slopes or clear cutting are involved, but I don't see protecting stormwater runoff by having the young couple that just had kids that wants to build a playground set on their property have to go get all these permits because they want to cut down 5 or 6 trees and they own 5 acres of property.
Now, please
I mean,
remember,
no, and that's more than 3 trees per acre on a single property with any calendar
and
year.
a tree is considered 8 inches or more. So we've done some looking around
8
at
inches or 18 inches?
8 inches or more for a tree.
8 inches.
8 inches or more.
8
Yeah.
inches.
Yeah.
You know how many of those I have on my property?
No,
and
I
I've got a little under 3 acres. When I put my children's playground up, I probably cut down at least 10 of those trees.
I don't
Had
think-
no ill effect to my property, the wetlands, or anything else to put that up.
I don't-
And if I had to go through a
I don't-
process to do
you
that, I
didn't-
just
you
go,
didn't
I
mean
think that
8
is
inches
crazy.
You
I
didn't
think
mean
that
eight-
is insane.
They didn't mean 8 inches around. You meant 8 inches diameter, I'm sure.
I meant 8 inches diameter.
At breast
8
height.
inches diameter.
right.
Still 8 inches. That's, to me, that's an 8-inch tree.
But let me just try to, so.
On my property, most of the 8-inch trees are weeds. They're not real trees. They're not oaks. They're not, I mean, it just seems to be over the top. And right now, with everything else we have going on, to me, this is over the top legislation. And it just is not sensible to me. If you're talking about sticking to clear cutting, as we said last time, steep slopes, things like that, that makes some sense. But if we're talking about more than 3 trees that are over 8 inches in diameter in any calendar year on an acre.
Per acre.
That-
So if you have 3 acres, you could cut down 9 trees without ever having to do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't,
And the
and I don't
other,
see,
the other thing.
I own that property. I spent good money, I paid great
Right.
taxes to the town of Lewisboro, went to the school district, and if I'm not gonna, I don't see how that is affecting my neighbors, I'm not cutting down the 24-inch diameter or 40-inch diameter oak tree,
But there's
or like
nothing-
what Peter was saying on Elmwood Road and things like that.
There's
Or
nothing
if
to
we look
stop
at
you
things
from
with
doing
special
that now,
character, all right, I've got the floor right now. Special character districts or things like that. This is not a debate. At this point in time, I really feel that, I don't see any changes in this. From when we discussed last time, I thought this was, when I looked on the agenda, I'm going to see some changes. But and we were pretty clear last time with that. This all looks the same. Even the discussion we had about wetlands last time, and I think this still is contradictory, A1, to what's currently in the wetland code.
Well,
And how are we going to propose something that's contradictory to what's already in the code? I mean, if you guys are working as the CAC along with this, and proposing an ordinance, how can we contradict our own code?
We did give this to the town attorney last time. The town attorney and asked specifically about clear cutting. We got indications that clear cutting was probably very difficult to define in a way that could be both understood and enforced, and really were strongly recommended to stick with a certain number of trees per acre, and many of the other ordinances have a sliding number and some other things, but we did try to keep it that. So that's that. The second thing.
Can I stop
Oh,
you
yes,
just for
I'm
a
sorry.
moment? If I heard you correctly, you'd indicated that you tried to emulate, in some respects, what our neighboring communities have done over the course of the last decade or so, correct?
Yes.
All right. How have they defined, if at all, clear cutting?
They have not defined clear cutting as a term. What they have done is use a number of trees per acre. And both Somers and Bedford have a sliding scale. as I remember, that there are, might have to check.
Do you have that matrix,
I
Sandy?
do have the matrix.
Because what I was surprised is that you were saying that what they're proposing is more onerous than anything
North
anybody else
Salem,
has?
well, not more onerous than everybody. North Salem,
Because I sat
Richfield.
in on some meetings where I heard them specifically say, we want to take sort of the most conservative
Yeah.
elements in each category that are out there. And I think that's what they attempted to do. If they missed on any of that, then I think we can go and look at that. But I just think to make a blanket statement that they have created something here which is more onerous.
More onerous than what we have now.
No,
by
but
far.
I thought what I heard you say. was-
Anything more onerous than what our homeowners have to deal with right now.
Okay, what
That's
I
said.
thought I heard you say was that it's more onerous than anything
No,
anybody else has.
I didn't say. I said Richfield, I believe, and North Salem. It's more onerous than,
onerous
from what I
than those.
remember when I looked at it, and I'm going back from that time.
There's an
Richfield and
impact
North
with
Salem.
agriculture and markets law, is there not, with respect to this? We're going to have to figure out how this integrates with agriculture and markets. Is we're going to get a complaint in the agricultural district because it doesn't jive with what we've gotten.
I believe it
So-
exempts agriculture, but the North Salem definition of a tree is 6 inches, which it would be smaller.
So that would be more onerous.
Well, wait a minute, but how many can you cut that? Where does it, whether they define it or not, how many can you cut down per acre, and what was it?
They need
I
a
don't think they
permit.
have a number per year
Yeah, they don't have you have to go get a permit.
for any tree. That's not my understanding in North Salem.
Bigger than 6 inches, that's, again. But the question, I think, is not necessarily, let me try to go back to the other point that you made, which is, we have got dangerous trees, and we basically say here, if you consider the tree dangerous or a threat, you have the right to take it down. This is only for trees that are, again, it's an attempt to stop clear cutting, only without using the term
Why don't we
clear
just say
cutting,
that? We're going to
because
stop
the-
clear cutting
Because we have
on
to
Because-
define
on
because
5-acre
the lawyers
properties.
have
There's
Okay.
a definition.
Well, yes,
So
if
if you guys
you
want,
could,
and
if
that's
you
what we
want to
said
come up with
last
a
time,
definition.
and nobody could come up with a definition. If you guys can
Cutting all the
define
trees.
it,
How's that?
if that's your definition,
Pretty
then
plain language.
every tree.
On
So
how many
what's-
acres?
And what's
that's
a
the other thing,
tree?
that's why I think we have the 5 acres makes sense. I mean, we could sit down again and look at it. I
Make it
believe
3 or
somewhere
2.
it mentioned about 10 acres.
So you're cool
I
with,
mean-
if it's 4 acres, they can just mow down every tree?
All right.
I mean,
On
I think you said
walking,
we'll make it different than that, right? So you make it, what would you make it for clear cutting? I mean, I'm not in favor of clear cutting, but it's.
Nobody's in favor of clear cutting.
And
When
I
you- when
think,
you-
and I
when you
think
s-
that's what encouraged us to come back, is
Well,
that
okay, but-
we had the sense that there was sort of a basic agreement on the fundamental objectives that we were trying to get to. And we had some specific questions about how things were working in Somers, and I talked to the town engineer there. And some specific questions about whether we should use clear-cutting language, and our attorneys advised us that saying clear-cutting was not as clear or as understandable or as enforceable as saying a number of trees. We would be glad, we came back to try to talk about the reasons for this, but I think if you're all agreeing that clear-cutting is not acceptable in this town, then give us something to work with. I think saying clear-cutting of, I personally think that if you saw someone clear-cut next to you 2 acres, you would be disturbed.
All right, how did that work with the Cod Farms, though? They had to make an application to the, what was it?
They- agricultural.
To us,
Right.
because they wanted to do a
Right.
goat farm.
And they got punished when they clear cut. And I
Well,
don't
no.
think-
No, they didn't
got-
do use.
They didn't do the number of
Right,
trees
whatever it was
permitted
gonna
by the
No,
planning board.
they got,
remember what it was.
I'm sorry, I do know this one. They did get, they were able to cut in the area that was agricultural. Where they got is when they went into places that were sort of standing in water and cut in the
Right.
wetland area.
Right.
So,
But they
and
cut
into
more
the-
trees than they were permitted per acre, as I recall. right?
I don't remember that part, but I do remember the wetland issue.
let's
But
try a
again,
different
if
way
you
into
want,
it.
If I have a-
yes.
if I wanna-
I've
if I
got
wanna make a
3 trees
pattern.
on my property which exceed the 18-inch
Yes.
diameter at 4'6", which is quite down. One of the things I quickly noticed measuring trees is they are a lot thinner by the time they get up to the 4-foot
Right.
level. I think that any of those, if I cut any of those trees, I would substantially change the nature of my property, those 3 18-inch trees. And I suspect that that is true of almost any 18-inch tree in town.
Okay, the caveat is, do you change it for good or do you change it for bad? In your property, you would be changing it, I suspect, for bad. Somebody else's property, they may be changing it for good. It's
Unless I
overhanging the nursery.
wanted to put something there, then I might consider it good. Do you know? But from the point of view of
Problematic from a law.
of the general look of the property, I think my neighbors would have to look at a less attractive
But a look
property.
isn't our only
if
consideration.
I'm reading this right-
A look is not our only consideration. We're talking stormwater, we're talking science, we're talking the look, okay. But we're also going to talk now about how much that's going to cost us by eminent domain condemnation in the law, because trees are natural resources to the property owner and not alienable by anything.
How many
except
cases-
Well,
demonstrated
how have all the
out there.
other towns in northern Westchester
But
got
Let's
through?
take things one at a time here.
Bedford has got an 18-inch
Not
permit.
unlike us.
All right?
Yeah.
And I see Pound Ridge has got an 18-inch permit. Cortland, Mount Kisco, North Castle, Somers, and North Salem do not have an 18-inch permit. What does that mean? So if you want to cut down one tree, it could be 36 inches. It doesn't make a difference. You don't need a permit. No? Then how's that work?
All of them have a tree diameter ranging from as little as 4 inches up to 12 inches.
For a permit?
They all have that.
It doesn't show that here.
Some towns have a landmark or specimen tree addition to that. Includes 36 inches in Mount Kisco, quite large, 24 in North Castle, 24 in Pound Ridge.
Yeah, that's it.
What's the 18-inch in Bedford one? Permit required, 18-inch, greater than 18 inches, Bedford.
Somebody sues in the federal court based on that.
That's, so
Somebody sues.
Bedford requires that for 6 inches or greater, but they have a specimen list, a town that, so they have gone out, they have a tree, they have a tree board, a separate tree board. The tree board has gone out and identified specific, or has the mission, I don't know how many they've done. They have the mission of going out and naming specimen boards, specimen trees. So they would have a list saying the Bedford oak and other stuff. So it isn't a diameter in addition to the piece. The other thing I found interesting, they said any tree 13 feet high or taller, which is essentially any tree. So, I mean, any tree that we would consider, if you can't get an 8-inch, well, I would think an 8-inch trunk that's less than
And what's
13
important
feet.
is you guys dismissed those kind of ideas from day one. I mean,
Right.
we're not talking about anything like that here. That's the important
whole
thing.
purpose for the presentation, so that we could have this discussion. So we can skip the presentation, because this is what we were aiming for. And so, maybe we can start talking about some of the issues that were raised. The first issues you raised are all allowed for the ordinance. Any diseased tree, any dangerous tree, any right-of-way tree for utilities or roads.
But how do you
we can
enforce
cut it
that?
down.
How do you enforce that? If I tomorrow pull out the chainsaw, cut down a 24-inch tree on my property, take it down, start chopping it up, get the guy there, we're shredding it up, and neighbor calls, he just cut down a big tree, should have got a permit, whatever, come over there, no, it's a dangerous tree. You should have seen the way it was hanging on my property. Oh, it was terrible, took it down.
Fair enough.
Fair
You
enough.
can't, it's unenforceable.
No.
That's why a lot of those
No.
laws, you don't put something on the books that's unenforceable
No,
like
but
that.
what that would do is if you came in and you said, this tree, I took down a tree, but if you took down every tree on your property, 3 acres of property, chances are somebody would say, this is now enforceable. They can't all have been dangerous, damaged.
But then why don't we write it that way? Once again, I think we can come up with a better definition than
If
doing
you
that.
want, so the definition of dangerous or threatening or damaged, whatever, and
No,
if,
not the definition of that, the definition of the amount of trees that you're cutting on an acre,
All right.
without having a permit. If you're gonna cut more than X amount of trees on an acre, it's considered clear cutting and you need to come in for a permit.
All right.
Whether it is, and that happens, if I'm gonna build a house on the property, bang, it's triggered already with that. It's triggered
Well,
from doing
and-
a lot of different work on a property that's triggered
And-
already with what's going on.
And if you're
But
building a house, it's already going to be included in the building permit. This would not be a, or whatever site plan
Exactly.
review. It would not be an additional thing. So this would not be, it would be part of whatever the building department and/or planning board gave you as part of the, depending upon whether it's a multi-division, multi-lot division, or
On
whether it's
any
one.
tree
So,
ordinance,
but
the
I'm
dangerous
willing,
tree
yeah.
will never.
I'm not worried about that.
You
So
will
if-
never be able
I
to
agree.
stop me saying it was dangerous, because if I believe that tree is dangerous, I am going to have it cut now. And
Done.
And you put this law in the books the way it's written right now, I guarantee you'll have more trees cut down in Lewisboro than you ever imagined before this thing gets ratified. You'll have more tree cut.
They're gonna
it's
run
called-
out and cut
They will.
everything?
People will. They're
Is
gonna
that
be
what-
scared of having to do that. Let me get it done now. I think it'll cause more damage by doing it if we do it in a haphazard way. It could very well cause more damage.
People
Right.
don't
And I-
read about the code and run out and quick cut down all their trees.
You've got,
That's silly.
you wanna make a bet?
They
that you
will.
will
No,
have
no,
tree
wait.
contractors do
So,
that, Dan?
so
Dan,
the,
Let's
you know
pass
what?
this law and then we'll
You know what, Dan, though? This is the same ridiculous kind of stuff that happened when everybody thought that the laws in Lewisboro were too onerous as far as wetlands, all the things that went on with that. You had people not going to the planning board, not going to the building department, and
Just doing
taking
it.
things into their own hands and just doing it. And when people do that, they cause more damage to the environment because they're scared to go and get the help that they should get from the town. We're not here to do that. We should be here, as the town and its building department, people should want to go there because they realize they're going to be helped. They're going to build a better product, build a better house, be safer for their family, and be safer for the environment. Not to be scared because, oh my God, if I call the building department, or oh my God, if I deal with CAC, let's just, you know what? On Thursday night about 5, I know my neighbors are away, come on over, let's just cut the stuff down. No one's going to worry about it. And then you know what? If anybody catches it, it's all down. That's what happens when you go over the top.
Peter, I was responding to your one comment, which was to say, when we enact this law, people are gonna run out
Yes,
with a chainsaw.
I
thought that was
guarantee
kinda
you.
silly.
Nope.
Personally.
and you said that would happen if it's haphazard. So we are looking for your help to make this not a haphazard law. We don't have that interest either. We want something that is clear, understandable. We don't want to keep people from doing things that they feel are dangerous. To take down dangerous trees. We don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. I mean, what we want to do is find the right wording to make it. So if you have suggestions, I mean, the reason we are back here is to try to, again, I think we all felt that people were in general agreement with the objectives.
So let me just take that for a second, because I vividly remember the first meeting we were all together. And you guys clearly have worked hard on this, so thank you, and we recognize that you're well-intended. We were all in agreement that we were opposed to clear cutting, and I think the genesis of the discussion remains at that point. We remain still in agreement as to that. Where we're struggling is to come up with an adequate definition. So I think that the criticism that's being leveled today, and I think it's constructive in nature, and it's a good healthy discussion, is that we're still not satisfied with the definition that you've delivered associated with what constitutes clear cutting. To ask us to help you with that, I'm not sure respectfully is a fair request, and I don't mean that
Okay.
disrespectfully, because none of us are arborists, and I'm not sure we can age in that regard, but somehow you have to come to us and advise us in a capacity where we're comfortable with what your definition of clear cutting is. So we don't perceive it as being ambiguous, and we don't perceive it as being onerous. And I think that that's really the genesis of the discussion, and I think that's where this legislation may need to be upgraded a little bit.
All right, so let me just try to give a couple of examples of how, if a 8-inch tree diameter is considered, that there's too many of them, would a 10-inch tree and 4 per acre, or 6 per, what makes you feel that this would be right? Now, remember,
I think it's the
so one of
impact,
the things...
Jen, and I'll direct you in that way, just so we'll go nice and slow. I think it's the impact, and it goes back to Frank and all. Maybe I could cut down 40 trees on my property, and it's not going to have that impact. And that's the question there. I think we're talking about scenic districts, I think if we go back to the historic overlay districts and things like that, I noticed something Bedford had here, 150 feet of a scenic road. There's a few things, maybe if it was laid out more with that kind of intent, where we do the research and the science. If it's steep slopes, you can't cut more than 4 trees in any year on a steep slope, or maybe you can't cut any trees on a steep slope. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. That's without a permit.
Without a permit.
Without a
Right.
permit, you know, something like that. But then if you're not within any other restrictions, I mean, it's questionable, other than clear cutting. And in clear cutting, maybe more than a percentage of your property, just like we have in the zoning code, the amount of what could be ground coverage and stuff like that. And maybe we can interpret something out of that without a permit, once again.
Here. You know, the town of Lewisboro has unfortunately been engaged in some legal events and things with various homeowners who claim that, you know, flooding that's going on here was the result. And meanwhile, upstream of that property, somebody took out, you know, 20 trees and did this, that, and the other thing. There are very real impacts with very real costs. There are places in this town where now storm drains are filling up because of, you know, excess cutting and development.
Yeah, you just said that,
So-
and I asked at the beginning of
Right.
this for specific examples. Which one?
Well, I would say that the bottom of Truesdale is a good example where people
And
have.
that's directly related to
Of the-
removal of trees. How many, where, when?
I would say so, yes. There was
Well,
development up the hill.
You would, because you have to.
Well,
You have to now,
as
but
the-
why would
If
you?
you were to look along the,
Is there a
with
cause and
the
effect
west
relationship?
side
Not
of
anecdotal.
Elmwood Road,
Not
you
anecdotal.
have
Is there a
related-
cause and effect
But
relationship?
we
Okay, you're
should be talking about
contesting that, you
development
have-
though, but Dan,
Not
you can
anecdotal.
talk about, no, but if
You
you
have
talk about
to for,
development, but
like,
wait a minute, no,
all
but if you
day.
say development, no, but you say development. If
I
you
understand
say
it's a different
development,
thing.
that is involved with planning board,
Right.
those people who built those
That's
houses
fine.
went through that, you've got planning, zoning, you've got stormwater, you've all that, so you cannot say that. This is not for development. This is for the person who decides to just cut down, has to cut down X amount of trees. So you
Well,
can't put that into the mix.
Fine, I'm just saying that when you just cited an example of, I should be able to cut down 40 trees, and then there may be no impact. Maybe, or there very well may be. I mean,
Downhill,
you
it
know,
might be downhill.
it might be
yeah.
downhill.
I
We
will
just-
give you
You
one
know,
example.
there's a number in here of the amount of storm surge that is picked up by a given tree. Frank says, well, for all I know, maybe trees aren't the best way to do that. So what, are you suggesting that people will cut this down and replace that with some other type of high-performing vegetation or storm scepters
I'm
or
not
something?
pretending to be an
I mean,
arborist, a botanist, or anything
you
else. What
already
I'm telling
have
you is we're a
these
governing
trees
town
in
board,
place.
and we shouldn't be getting into speculation and anecdotes. If you
I-
have science that
this is
grounds
pretty
it, tell me
good
what it
science.
is.
I don't, nobody has numbers, this is not,
I
a-
can-
but this is
I
pretty
can
good
But my
send-
science.
I
issue
can
is, other
definitely
than,
send you
other
a-
than a
I
couple
want
of
to
the
speak to one
situations,
more
okay,
thing
finish
here,
that. Yeah.
because Frank just threw something out, just for the audience, you were talking about the threat of people taking us up as this as being an eminent domain
Right,
type
and
thing.
our
And
statutes
I would like
have fostered that
Anthony to
before.
speak to this. As far as I understand, this area is pretty much set law under New York State, that this is, that the town boards have the right to legislate in this area for the protection of the natural resources. It's a fully vetted and.
Absent the violation of
Right.
the Constitution.
Right,
The issue is enforceability.
Absent anybody with a-
Any town
with a
you go into
fee.
the ordinance, there's an issue with enforceability. I don't care what town you're in or what your ordinance says.
That's
Three ordinances are
fine,
difficult to
but I'm
enforce.
just saying, there was, the eminent domain word was thrown out, and that's pretty scary for people.
Sure.
Is that a realistic threat, that we could be enmeshed in eminent domain cases?
a tree
Let's
is
just-
chattel property, and that's always been the law in New York.
I can't say no one's going to raise the argument, but yes, you can regulate in the area of
Have
cutting
you
down trees
ever,
and
have you ever
restricting
heard
it.
of a case or experienced a case around here? In that-
I personally have not.
All right.
But
I'm just saying.
And
Sure,
the
is it
question is,
theoretical
if you're
possibility?
going to make a
Maybe.
code and you're going to define what clear cutting is, it's going to have to be in terms of how many trees, either per acre or percentage of lot, or percentage of coverage, or however you word it, however you feel is reasonable. It has to be some kind of measurable, number, some quantity to it in order to
I mean,
to
yeah,
enforce
we
it.
don't want people
Otherwise,
coming
it's-
in my mind,
it's a
we
vague
don't
number.
need people coming in for cutting down 3 trees. I mean, if you want to actually have a permit issued, you want to have somebody actually coming in, they're going to do something, okay, if I'm going to cut down a larger amount of trees on my property or building something to do that, then you need to issue a permit, granted, and that's generally covered by, if you're building a swimming pool, if you're building an addition to your house, that's generally already covered by the code that we have.
But you brought up a good point. If you have 5 trees on a larger lot, or 30 trees on a smaller lot, that plays
Or
into...
you could have a postage stamp on the edge of a lake, and I want a beachfront, and I'm gonna cut all 5 of those trees, and then there goes, all the buffer between there and the lake. That could be a...
And if you bought it with the intention of making the beach, and that was what the law was, you're gonna get sued when you change the law. And that always has been the law in New York.
Just an overriding comment. All protective tree ordinances are based legally on the premise that a tree, and we're not talking about protecting all trees at all. We're talking about protecting a very small minority of trees. And the premise is the trees that we're trying to protect hold value for someone other than the property owner. So they're either on a steep slope, we're clearing them, or in a clear-cut situation where it creates erosion issues for the town or the neighbor, or it's a tree that borders a property. And many of our neighboring communities have their ordinances are set around property lines. So a tree who has value to a neighbor, perhaps more so than the person that owns it, that's who we're trying to protect.
I think everybody sitting here is in agreement with that premise.
That's not what's here.
And we're all in agreement with that. I think that the criticism is that the observation is that the legislation is amended as proposed, is not implemented. And I think that's...
Well, wait a minute, but you understand...
You hit the nail on the head right there, though, Jeff.
That's exactly what we're trying to achieve here. And what we try to do is to simplify and actually become less restrictive than all of our neighboring towns. So that's where we started, and that's still where we're trying to get.
Well, I applaud you for that.
Even though it doesn't sound...
Agreed.
I agreed. I applaud you for that.
And the one thing that the town of Somers did say is they have tried to do it within tried to enforce within a setback, or sort of it's the opposite of setback. It's within the area closest to the edge.
Generally anywhere from 5 to 40 feet of a buffer.
Yeah, within 5 to...
But how did
and
they...
Wait, and they now, the town engineer told me that's very, very difficult for people to understand. And they are going to try to just work with specimen-sized trees, which is kind of, in our proposal, 18 inches or bigger, anywhere on the property, because it turns out that if it's, if the thing there happens to be 20 feet and that's 21 feet away, the neighbors complain. So they say they're moving towards specimen-only trees because the edge property doesn't seem to work for them.
And how are they defining specimen?
That's my question.
And they, I think they were putting in...
Are they talking species, though? Like
No, they're talking
18...
18, well, and again, all you would have to do is come in for a permit to get that. But they're saying they want to be able to at least have someone say, talk to your neighbor about this before you take down this 18-inch tree. I think, as I remember, I think they might have been talking 20 inches, just so they could say we're not as restrictive as some who have 18. But but don't hold me to that. They were still having...
Just once again, having everybody run in just for a 20-inch or an 18-inch tree just doesn't...
Well, the other component to this would be public education, because, even so there was no defense, but prosecuting town matters, people could have been in court and said, I have no idea how to get a permit, but that's 3 trees on the property. That you're going to run into as well.
There's other parts that need work too. I mean, conceptually, everybody's against clear cutting. We all know that. So there's required some work. But I have some in the sort of the details of the proposed legislation with respect to the utilization of town employees. I need a budget forecast and the impact on other obligations. So we're going to need the costs, including any collective bargaining impacts that may incur as a result of that. And we're going to have to work in conjunction with the other departments to determine whether or not the time proposed for this ordinance is satisfactory to them and how much that's going to cost us to implement, and whether or not we can negotiate that in any collective bargaining agreement.
And I would definitely remove 5. The legislative purposes intent specified in the chapter shall also apply to all tree removal on public property. We should not be subject to this whatsoever.
Well,
because we have issues with children's camp, we have issues with the town pool, we have issues with the athletic fields, where at times we need to clear trees, whether it be for danger, for being able to have events, for doing things like that. it's something that would be very restrictive to do that. And it would also be subjective too. Oh, well, this is a dangerous tree, that's why I removed it for children. Oh, we got it, well, it's not dangerous, we better get the building department to look if it's dangerous. We've had issues like that. We actually have had, not, thank God, knock on wood, Lewisboro, some serious injuries in Westchester County and even a death because of branches and trees falling on children during the season. So I don't.
And again, any dangerous tree is exempt.
But once
I mean,
again,
I think you might have a bit of a public outcry if we apply an ordinance, if we do apply it to the public.
generally towns, and Anthony can speak, generally towns are not subject to that.
Quite a few of them are, not all of them.
Generally, they're not. Generally, they're not required to do that. Generally, they're not required on parks property if we're going to build a structure or do something like that. Those are general things that towns are not, municipal, are not subject to because we are the municipality.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Again, the town of Somers said that they do have town, I mean, because when I had this discussion with the town engineer, and he said it does apply to town property there. They, and they also work with tree stewards out of Valhalla to help them sort of confirm, who apparently are a county or maybe Cornell Cooperative, I'm not quite sure that they're called tree stewards in Valhalla. And they will come up and help assess dangerous trees, especially big town trees, because he said he knew he was taking down a town tree that might be, so that people might treasure as part of Somers. But because he had the ability to bring in experts who would say that this was, yes, indeed a dangerous tree, they were able to do that. So there are resources available. It isn't all.
No, but on the same note, I think certain trees, if we do have certain trees in town, they should be identified. I think that would be a worthwhile project to see if somebody from Cornell Cooperative, whoever it would be, to go around the town. I don't think we have nearly as many as Bedford or some of the other neighboring towns, but if we do have certain trees, to, mark them. Deal with our town historian, with Maureen. I think that would be a very good project to do that. Then if one of those trees do wind up posing a danger in the future or whatever, we'd have to look long and hard and see if we would have to have an arborist try to save that tree before we take it down, or if we have to take it down.
So
But
this is on town properties? Is that what you're saying?
No, on any property.
Well, I would say on town properties first.
Town property.
Yeah,
This-
town property is doable. Any property, yeah.
Please.
Start with the easy one.
I'll take assignments, but that's a big one.
No, I think the town property makes a world of sense on that.
The other one is on enforcement. The executive's the only ones can enforce. It says here, as written, that the tree officer shall consult with the CAC. I don't think that's appropriate for anything with the punitive. I mean, you have something in there about going to jail. I don't think you should be making those decisions.
That was, yeah, okay. That certainly wasn't the intent. It was if there's a
Probably consult on whatever
consulting. It was a consulting.
Yeah, well, I
point.
know, but it's under administration enforcement 203-3.
Okay. So how about if we change the
Move it
shall to may?
B1. Well,
Or move it
okay.
elsewhere.
May.
As
Okay, guys,
No,
let's,
shall and may make a difference, that law.
The crux of this
Right.
is still the clear cutting definition.
Yeah,
John
let's
just
figure
now
that out.
felt that it was unfair to toss it back at us. I know you guys felt a little frustrated on going the other direction because there was just comments here, we only want to do clear cutting, but nobody wanted to come forth and help define that. So it's kind of going both ways, this sort of
I agree with
I
you.
mean,
tussle here. And
I think both sides need help.
the fact is you're using a term which we've essentially, in a sense, it's in common use, but there's no definition for it, right?
But I don't know that. That's,
Might
I
be.
guess that there might be, and I guess that's the question I'm asking. What was the process that the neighboring towns went to arrive at their statute, which
I don't know if
presumably
any of the
addresses the
neighboring
issue of
towns
clear
actually
cutting?
use clear cutting. I think that our general reaction the first time was that a clear cutting definition would probably be more severe than what we put in here. So we thought it would be better to find some middle ground. Even if we amend this to what's less restrictive than it is, it's probably better than a clear cutting definition, which means anything.
And
I
I
think
think
the
Anthony
sliding scale-
before you gave us some advice just before, saying that it really is better to say, define
Number of
trees
trees
as
or
a certain
coverage.
size, do some kind of, number of trees, coverage, and we're willing to try to, I mean, what we did was take a simplistic approach, try to make it really clear and obvious. So if you have 3 acres, you get 9 trees that are over 8 inches tall. I mean, but
But it also
if you
took
want
me
it,
21 days to get approval. So if I want to cut down more than the 3 trees on my acre, I only own 1 acre, I want to cut down 4 trees.
right?
So I got to go for the permit, and it can take 21 days to get a permit. And if I don't get my permit in 21 days,
Well, that's
it's
an
deemed to be
The
approved.
intent there
That's
is to
an
limit
obli-
the time. If you want to make it shorter, we certainly can, but that's.
I'm just saying, but just to give, I mean, this is for
That
3
gives
trees.
the town,
Yeah.
that gives the, that would be the extent, but that's a town obligation. We didn't want to make it shorter in case the building
No,
department guy was on vacation that week. I
Sure,
understand your,
but that's my, you understand my point.
yeah, and again, remember, that's only 4 trees that are bigger than 8 inches. And if
Yeah.
you would be happier with 10 inches, I mean, I'm
To go to
happy.
Dan's point, you guys
Yes.
need advice. I agree. I'm going to give you my feeling just
Right.
in a nutshell. I like the idea if we're going to do anything with a sliding scale, okay? I don't think the guy that has 10 acres should be subject to the same guy that only has the 1 acre. Because as Dan, if I only have 1 acre, I'm in a 1 acre zoned area, I've got my property, my neighbors closer on top of me.
Right.
It may be the 3 or 4 trees, depending on the size or something. But if I have more acreage, even though you're saying it's
Okay.
3 trees per acre, I think it should compound up higher than that. What that
Right.
number is,
Okay.
I don't know. What's an acceptable number?
That's,
But I think that
That's
makes
very helpful.
a little bit more sense. I think the historic, and it should be pretty lenient, the sliding scale.
Okay, yep.
Except then maybe if you're in a special character zone or something like that. If you're in that special character zone, you've bought your property knowing you are in a special character district. There are things, there might be the larger trees there. There are requirements that you got to go to ACARP for what color your house is, what your door is going to look like, what this and that. You're in that area of what's going on. So that would make sense. And I think we should then also, yeah, we've got some of the members of ACARC out there. But that would be
Yeah.
my feeling there. And on top of that, we should have something more, if we can, with what clear cutting would be above and beyond, or not above and beyond, outside the realm of going for a permit to do construction. If I just want to clear cut couple of acres of my property because I want to build I've got 10 acres, I want to clear cut 2 acres because I'm going to build a horse barn and I want to make a riding ring. I need to get a permit for that. You know what I mean? So I think that's captured already, but I want to make sure that that's captured.
yeah, I think that is.
I mean,
And
it's
if you
captured in our
went,
existing
and
code?
if you
Yeah,
went to an
just
agricultural,
Clarify.
then you'd have then you would be exempt because you'd be in the agricultural
Exactly.
district.
I
So-
also would like to keep a girth at some point where you have to get permission. I
Okay.
know that the larger trees on my property, by definition, affect people, even if they're nowhere near the boundary.
But you're in a special character district, so you're out of luck
No,
anyway.
not at the back.
No, not at the back. No, you're all in there. We're enlarging it.
That's right.
That's part of.
Just for you. Just for you.
And we're going to vote on the color of your door, too.
Okay.
But
Well, Max,
pre-George Washington maples
Mm-hmm.
I should not be able to decide that I would like to take it down one more.
Yeah, the average home is owned, what, 7 years, and if a tree's been there 200, you know.
But if you feel it purports a danger to yourself, your
If it's a
children, or your
danger,
home,
well,
then
it's a danger, it goes.
So-
I get that.
Yes, but it isn't.
So, didn't George Washington cut
down the
trees?
trees.
Okay, so you offered, I think, a helpful,
I
Was
still
it? Are you
would.
sure?
No, this is
How old was
helpful.
he?
I think we have a lot
I
of
think
work.
you offered some helpful
Hey,
kind of
guys.
suggestions
Helpful
about
suggestions.
sliding scale.
How do you feel about that?
I think it
Well-
sounded like that's something they could work with to
Right.
Now,
decide
how do
this.
you feel?
Yeah, no, I would probably live with something.
I mean, we were
like that.
trying for simplicity, but we'll go for,
But then you also threw out the clear cutting, but then we were saying.
If
the
it's captured,
example, then
yeah,
it's
I
maybe
don't know.
captured,
I just
so-
want to make sure, let's
I just
cover
wanna-
that. I want to make sure that's
I want to
captured.
go back and be able to work productively on this without being in the same boat they were last time.
right.
So
That's a
is
fair
there-
request.
Is there still an issue about that we have to have a clear-cutting word and it's defined? Or is this a matter of, a lot of times you're referring to the larger pieces of property, and the ability to do a little bit more on those. And so maybe that's where they can focus their attention. What were the other sorts, kind of?
What are
sticking points on
the question I raised the last time we were together was, and I'm asking it again, is how the how our neighboring townships, or other townships for that matter, who had a concern with stormwater runoff and with clear cutting, what was the process that they went through? The research process, the data collection that they went through to arrive at their legislation. And then how has that legislation evolved for them? Has the enforceability been effective, and have the objectives been achieved? So that's, I'm still not garnering that.
I can give you a couple of things on that. When I talked to Bedford, for example, and along historic roads, that is because a utility company came in and cut a bunch of trees along a historical road without really asking.
Can they still do that, though?
I think what John's looking for is more along a science and a study, not,
right.
you know,
No, but
anecdotes and this happens.
well, okay, so what they have done, I mean, I will say that many of these ordinances do seem to react to some specific resident complaints. The second thing, I mean, if you are looking for science, I can certainly send you some.
We'd like a survey of what happened with these other things.
You know what
John is saying, other people implemented other things. Is that good? Is it bad? Are they sorry they did it? Is it working out well for them? Is it working out?
Okay.
Did they get sued? I mean, are they making some money?
Okay.
Are they losing money?
And irrespective of what the precipitating event was.
Right.
What was the study and the data that was collected as a predicate to then implementing the modified legislation? That's what I'm
Right,
looking for.
and I don't believe, again, from the two people that I've spent time with, I went and spent a great deal of time with met face-to-face with Bedford, and then talked on the phone a great deal with the Somers. That it was, first of all, they're happy with the law, that it came about without, I would say, a great deal of scientific information behind it. They just felt that it was the appropriate thing to do. They had this kind of dialogue about size of trees, restrictions. Again, the one thing that the Somers guy did tell me was that the trying to protect the edges, trees in the edges, was a very difficult thing for people to understand. And he would not recommend that. He felt that the specimen tree was a much, you know, a big tree was better than trying to do that. Now, we do have some scientific reports I can give you about stormwater in particular and how that works, and I can certainly share that. But beyond that, I think you've given us a lot of information. I think your request about how some of the other towns went through this, it's anecdotal. They don't have.
Well, that's not how it worked out for them. I mean,
I'm sorry?
They must know how it worked out for them. That's what we really want to know.
Right, and I would
How it
say
worked out for
both
them.
Bedford and Somers, who are the ones that put it in most recently, their laws in, are feeling that it was definitely a positive thing to do.
Are they getting, what I'd like to see is, first of all, our complaints. Do we get a lot of complaints? Like, talk to, I guess, Peter Barrett and see, are we getting complaints about people cutting trees? I mean, other than, we know the biggies. We've had a couple of big violations, we talked about them. But other than those biggies, have we had anything? How often, is this something that we're running around and doing? You know, is this something that's going on? And how does Peter feel about, what does he think would be something that would be enforceable? Or, you know, be great, hey, he's the guy that is in the business. Let's hear a little bit about that, because I'd like to know. We haven't had anybody come here for the length of time I've been in town board, other than the one major issue we had, saying you guys need to do something. Too many people cutting down trees in Lewisboro.
Okay.
All we've heard lately is we need to, once again, go back to the
More trees so I
beginning.
can get my power back.
Cut more trees down, because, you know, every time the wind blows, we have no power. Please
Right.
have NICEAG cut as many trees as possible down. So, you know, we have people bothering poor Pete Rippinger, trees that aren't our trees over in
Right.
Golden's
Asking
Bridge.
you to work
We
on it.
keep getting, these are your trees. No, they're not our, you gotta cut these trees down, you gotta cut these trees down. That's,
No.
The intent is, and the ordinance does allow all of them. You know, there's a lot of noise out there that, you know, we have to cut these down, but the ordinance, as it's proposed, already allows all of that. And that's the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other,
Hey,
so
guys.
this is good. We'll get to, I know last time I thought you didn't want us to talk to the building inspector yet about this
No,
until it
I
was
asked him.
more, and so I'm
Well, we're gonna wanna
pleased,
hear
we'll go,
from him anyway.
we'll go talk to him.
And the only
Right.
thing is this one, the wetland one, just make sure, once again, you can talk to Anthony, whatever, that number one, A1.
Yep.
Just if it conflicts, I think I know you mentioned here any dead tree, I think you can remove dead tree. There was something, I remember we went through that whole wetland thing, just make sure it doesn't. And then in the wetlands, didn't we see something about clear cutting? They make some comment to something? I don't have the code book with me.
Yeah,
I wasn't pulling out.
there's a-
Just let's make sure we kind of flow, or if we've got to remove or change to make it all mesh right, let's make it mesh right.
Okay, guys.
Great,
I don't
thank
think we're
you.
going to get this any.
Yep,
very
thank you for your
much
time.
further
Before we go,
Oh.
what, you have other projects, right? There's ADA compliance with the preservations, parking and trails that you're working on, and cleanup, no? How are we doing with those?
Wait, okay, so,
The town, I think the
Come back.
town board asked CAC to work on ADA compliance at the preservations,
That
at the
wasn't the.
preserves,
I don't think so.
parking and trails.
It might have been
Guys.
preserves,
I think that was another committee.
yeah, but
Open space? Wasn't that open space?
open space and preserves?
Oh.
But, because
No
I,
longer open space.
I'll look at the minutes
Right.
again, but weren't we
Oh,
asking
sorry.
them for a solution on the cleanup?
all right, and if this was a request, I don't remember getting it. And what was the second one?
The supervisor's project, cleanup, volunteer for cleanup for the preserves, no?
Yes, and I've been working very hard with.
That's the preserves.
I think that's
with the
preserves again.
It isn't called the Preserves Committee, but I will get
Right.
there a bit. Open space preserves.
Open
I
space
can't
and
think of the.
preserves advisory,
Open
advisory
Space
committee. I
and
think it's open
Preserves
space preserves.
Advisory Committee.
Advisory committee, yeah. But,
Okay, very good.
okay, so,
Thank you, Jeff.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Jeff.
Thank you guys at all the work from the committee. Even though
All
you
right.
did, you wanted the debate, you got the debate, but we
No,
gotta
we
thank you guys for
got
all
a
the
lot
hard
of,
work
we
you
got a lot
guys
of
did.
We all read the-
information.
we all read the
We got a lot of
PowerPoint,
information.
obviously.
Thanks.
Thank you
On
for
that
the
count,
effort.
and something that Dan knows a bit about, but there was this, a grant for the bridge in Old Field, or a bog
Yes,
bridge.
I know.
It's kind of resurgent now, and there's some questions about what the scope was originally, but there's an opportunity to maybe reapply and get that funding back. But it is a matching grant. It was originally anticipated that there would be in-kind from in-house resources, but those resources being more constrained these days, there's a need to go back and revisit that. So anyway, that's something that was related to this, perhaps, of what you were thinking about.
Okay, I'm going to dodge around a little on this agenda, if you don't mind, and I'm going to move directly to roads, because we have kept a lot of people, at least two people, waiting one hell of a long time.
Should have been entertaining. Huh?
And it was.
Peter,
It was lively.
if I can do a little bit of introduction here, the real core of the discussion tonight is Schoolhouse Road.
Oh,
Schoolhouse Road is a problem road, which we all know, and is responsible for a considerable amount of complaint. At the west end of the road, there is also a pond which... Two ponds which are filling with gravel. A previous supervisor, a long time ago, Green, right?
Agreed.
Signed an agreement with the lady who owns that property that in exchange for us draining the water from Schoolhouse into her pond, we would dredge her pond.
why don't we just plant some trees?
Pretty soon you'll be able to, okay?
While
Sorry, it was just right out there, had to do it.
the issue, she has been very nice about this. And she has not threatened a lawsuit or anything else yet. But there is only one way this can go if the town does nothing. And that's it will get rougher. The choice before the town at the moment is to decide to really do something about the whole problem of Schoolhouse next year, or to maybe go dredge the pond this year and face the fact we're going to have to dredge it again.
Well, what do the people in Schoolhouse say?
Well,
Well, you
Peter,
can't speak. basically, Frank, answering your question, when we're speaking schoolhouses, you know or should know, it's the west end, start right by 121, from that hill down. Has been a problem going back on a record since the 60s. And what is happening because of its slope, its steepness, that everything runs off. All the drainage on this part of Schoolhouse Road is decayed and gone. Now, we can redo it, as Joe has made his plans, to repipe it, which we would like to do, and put more piping in here. But one of our biggest problems is going to be, this is all very close to the wetlands. We are thinking of blacktopping this. Now, well, let me get into this, because I know there's two problems here. First of all, it has to be approved by the town board, because it's a dirt road. That's number one. But actually, number one really should be is, because it's within 150 feet of the wetlands, this could take a year and a half.
To get the permits.
Get the permits. Now, Joe, on the other hand, has, as early as tonight, come up with another plan. I'll let him explain it to you, which would be shy of it, you know, on the hill. Just do the hill and leave the downforce dirt, okay? Because we're picking the volume up all the way from the top of this hill that's coming down. It's I have the pictures, I think you've all seen them, so I won't bore you with it. But it's ripping this down, coming into this man's property, and then crossing over into the ponds. Both inlets on the ponds are pretty well plugged.
And it's like a bobsled channel. There's nothing.
Well, you've seen the
nothing
pictures. I have the pictures here. You're free to look at them. And it
everything's
can't
been
help it. And
aggregated.
what has happened is the last one, 2 weeks ago, the pipes are come right up to the ground. Okay, I mean, they're up there. So we're constantly going out there and putting more and more in product to make it passable. Beside the cost of it, I think we really, what I'm looking at is, can we get your permission next year? Will we have your permission next year to think about, or at least give me a go, that we can do the hill? Forget the wetlands area at this point. I don't want to put in all the new drainage this year for fear of, if we don't do this, we're going to be back into the same problem we got right now. We are going to modernize the drainage system, so that it'll take a little bit more of the.
Are you going to be able to divert anything coming off?
It's
the
all
hill?
going to go to the same locations that we have our easements on.
Nothing earlier than that?
No, but see, the problem is not so much early, you can't, because this is all private property, and it's all a hill.
How much pavement if you went from 121 straight?
Well, if we went to 120, oh, Joe.
This plan shows about 1,400 feet, 1,300 feet of paving.
Right up here then.
Third of them on.
And like Peter said, your real problem area starts about here. This is about a 10% slope in here, and with the gravel surface, it begs to run downhill. So if we were to maybe eliminate this front third of the asphalt, you save a third of the cost of the paving, but you pave the problem area, the slope. Capture that and some new drainage, bring it down to the ponds where it's going now anyway, and maybe, Dan, to your point, another alternative or concept maybe is maybe create some forebays, some small forebays at the outlets of each of these storm systems, and then, for your future maintenance, it'll give Peter an access point. Just keep an eye on the forebay. When that builds up some sediment, you have an easy point to monitor, maintain, rather than to have to go in years from now and dredge a pond again. You're maintaining a forebay.
I mean, I'd like to, hear from Schoolhouse Road as far as we heard with Chapel, paving versus not paving. I think we gotta. Once again, we got people that don't want to pave, we have people that want to pave, but I'm not sure, you do have a lot of horse property, a lot of use on there, I don't know.
Peter, just to bring you up to speed on that, and I agree with what you're saying, the section we're doing, you've got about 4 or 5 houses in here, okay? The worst part of the road. We're not talking about the major part of the road all the way back.
Yeah.
So this is becoming a safety issue even for the school buses.
I think it makes sense. I think it's kind of what we had originally at Chapel.
Could we have the people here and have a presentation maybe, if that's what you want to do? But I don't want to, what I guess we're looking for tonight, do we have your support to look into this? Will you back it up as far as the blacktop? I don't want to get into this with money, right? I mean, I need the thought of it. I'm not saying, if you look at Chapel Road, all the problems we have to look at it.
How much though?
This is obviously very preliminary. This was just,
Sure.
we came in, let's pay from here to the high point.
How long is that stretch then?
This is a little over
1,500 feet.
1,300. It's about 1,350.
It makes sense.
So not even a quarter mile.
If you're going to pave it,
So
it makes sense to pave the whole
$50,000.
thing.
Right, it's just the permits, it would take a little longer.
It would
Take
make
a
sense
while.
to pave the whole thing.
It would, definitely.
A lot of costs we're going to need to know. What the forebay, what does that cost to build? What's the cost of paving? What's the cost of continuing to lay the product down and dredging the ponds?
Well,
obviously I'm going to want a comparative.
Oh, yeah, I understand. Well, if you look at, you got a quarter mile of road here, okay? So if you look at, let's say quarter mile, say a third, to give you the benefit of that, you're looking at $50,000-$60,000 alone in that, okay? To get that down.
And
As
you
far
gotta
as
do the
all the
piping
pipe
anyway.
goes, we
You gotta
can
do
buy
the
the
piping
pipe.
anyway.
Our problem's getting enough labor to put it down, but we would all work together to make this happen. The dredging's what I'm worried about. Because years ago, when the town used to dredge these back in the 80s, you took it out. Now you've got to, as Joe will tell you, it has to be sampled. So I pulled all the deeds on Suzie Mason's property that we have in the town. There's references to it, but I think there's a letter, and I think the only one that has it, and if with your permission, I'd like to let Anthony get in touch with George Roberts. George Roberts was the one that did all the agreements on this, and it's a little ambiguous. I don't want to get into an expense if it's not ours, but we've clogged her ponds, and she wants to sell the property. The same as she's very nice, she's not pushy, she's not putting it on us. Actually, this gentleman over here is probably a little more pushy. We have easements all the way through here. Robert's got us, all our easements are in there, we have all this. Right now, we're stabilizing it. We could, and if I start running pipes up there, we're gonna be in the same problem in a couple of years. I don't wanna waste it on
Well,
it.
the drainage right now is compacted, right?
It's compacted, yeah, and
A lot
it's
of
encaved
them, I
in,
think
yeah.
Some of them aren't even working right now, so to put new drainage in there without.
New excavation
fixing
all the way
problem,
Yeah, it's so very old.
I think you end
It's
up
very
in
old.
a similar situation down the road.
So what we wanna do is-
Unintended. But, one of the big variables is the dredging. And a
We
lot of
don't know that.
A lot of the cost for that is
don't
on
know.
the disposal site. Obviously, if you could just dredge it and keep the material on site, is a bigger savings than have to truck it somewhere.
Well, look, we did the study a number of years ago that the cost to maintain chapel, schoolhouse, east, all
Exactly.
of these came up as big numbers. So,
Yep.
so schoolhouse is right on there.
This is your next biggest one over
Yeah.
Chapel Road was?
Yep.
Yeah.
Every time now, and years ago you could say to me, well, these pipes have been here for a long time, put more in. We're not getting the storms like we did. Now when they get it, they're impacted, it's just knocking the heck out of it.
I think we make a good compromise, and that's what you're showing us. And I think that was something we always had as Chapel for safety. We always had that first section paved going down to 121. It only makes sense to move in that direction. I think we do, like anything else, have to hear some more of the particulars, but I wouldn't be against it.
Let's talk about that. You talk about asphalt. I mean, we're kicking around this oil and stone. Is that a highly traveled road? It's not now.
Oh, that road, Schoolhouse Road, will always be highly traveled, I gotta tell you,
is,
because
sir?
it's a shortcut to the school and missing the light. So if you did that whole road, but before this, if they're coming down from Mead Street, they got a lot of length to go through before they hit this piece. This piece is when they get there, when it rains, it's half the time not there. So that, I wouldn't want to do the whole thing as much as I like blacktop, I do. We would have a lot of problems with the people in the road, I would think.
Yeah.
This, I just want to
I
get the
think just for
safety
safety
aspect.
sake, that one section, I agree.
Now, I would like us to be aware that I think one of the next steps is for Peter to talk to people on
I've
the
spoken
road.
to the owners, and the two here that are impacted by this have no problem, because they've all lost their driveways
Yeah,
recently.
I'm
So they're
sure they have.
interested. I mean, I think what we could do, as we do this, we could maybe invite these people, but the biggest impactors, as you get a call from a gentleman over there every couple of weeks over here that's getting hit. Okay, you know that.
No, yeah, I
Yes,
do.
you know.
Yeah, not me.
So this area
Thank God.
is getting, now, this farm over here is flooding up
Yep.
because it can't get over to the pond. So
Well, let's
I
hear
think
from
if you
everybody.
relieve that pressure, it'll be better for her too.
All right.
And I didn't want Joe to go any farther with it without a conversation with the board.
We appreciate that.
Because it's. I don't
A
wanna
solution
take
is
this time.
preferred. We're throwing good money after
Well,
bad
that's
every
why
year on the
due
same
diligence
thing.
for us is to give you a plan, and then we can sit down and
Tough as
discuss
it
how do
is,
we make
man.
this plan come apart. We can't do it
I
this
appreciate
year.
your work.
You have our sentiments, that we're, at least I think
Yeah,
we're
I just-
in agreement with you. It's
We'll pursue
a
this.
sensible
hopefully
thing
for
to at
next
least
year that we can-
initiate.
I just don't want to, the woman's getting a little, pretty soon she's going to want these ponds done.
Yeah.
Jonah, we can get a permit, but I think we got to look into talking to her, see if she'll let us put it on her property, because she doesn't want me to put it around the pond. If we can leave it on the property, we're in good shape. So Joe and I will get together, maybe go speak with the woman and
Walk the sites.
walk the sites and see what we can come up
If she knows
with.
she doesn't want it, see if there are any areas that will actually work for it.
Then we could correct that and repipe
Deal with
these.
that
I mean,
problem.
is the material recoverable at all? I mean, if you're taking it out of the
Oh,
pond, it
it's-
ran into the pond from the road, can you dry it and
You
move
see,
it?
the problem is you're thinking like I am right now, but if it was possible, see, what we could do is take this out, we'd love
it
to
back
do, if we
on.
had a staging area, pack it up,
Right.
let it dry down,
Right,
then take it out. It's only item 4.
right.
Item 4 in gravel. And believe me, if it's reusable, I use it.
Hey, that's what we were telling a guy over in, at Norwalk Water to do.
But So, well, if you want us, we'll try to get some, Joe, get some.
I guess for the purposes of what we would do, as far as all the other alternatives that you might want to see for pricing and budgeting, this plan with the couple of 4 bays I mentioned would probably be the Cadillac solution to this problem. I don't know that you want to see that.
It's been years since we've had Cadillac money, so let's,
let's see it. If we can get those going,
for comparative purposes.
Yeah, let's.
If we can get those
Well,
going
also, if
and make
there's a long-term, I mean, if there's a return on that investment.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
if by doing it this way, the amortized cost is cheaper, we should know
And
that.
then I guess maybe as a second alternative
I
would
agree.
be to eliminate the asphalt from this lower section.
Yeah.
That will obviously reduce construction costs, it'll save you on engineering costs because it won't be the permitting with the DEP that will be necessary to pave that.
Yeah, I can imagine that eliminates some headaches.
Well, it takes a Chapel Road
And
to,
that
this is
saves you a lot of
DEC,
time,
that's
too.
not a
It'll get you out of the
problem.
ground quicker
but-
if we could eliminate
you know.
that from the equation.
All right.
And we'll miss all the, we do leaf the hill, you're not gonna get any of that sediment up to here getting into that pond. And that's the
Yeah.
worst of it coming from there.
So, but you know how many cars go down there a day? I mean, we've done this study
sorry,
already.
what?
We figured out how many cars go down there a day, we figured it out
Actually,
already.
if
That
Joel
number's
digs
in the
further,
study.
he's done a couple surveys, because we had
Yeah.
to do it for Chapel Road.
Right.
And it's in the
That's
big
what I'm saying, on
dirt
schoolhouse.
road study.
Yeah, so,
All those numbers are there.
Yeah, so where does that,
600 a day in school.
600 a day?
when school's in.
During school.
So if you made that a freeway, could be, and you can't widen Schoolhouse
no,
Road, so you know, you get that going down there, those people are gonna go crazy. The other thing, you're gonna have people at the other end that have been wanting the blacktop to be jealous, but that's okay, we can get this part.
Do we know, I don't know, maybe Anthony, if you know, or if there's a way you can find out, the details of the easement agreements for these ponds?
We're gonna have to look at them, right?
You know, if we're gonna come in now and propose 4 bays, you know, that would all, obviously have to all be worked out.
Yeah,
with easements and everything else, but I guess we can show that as an alternative.
Should be in the county clerk's office, no? They're filed like deeds.
I can give you, Anthony, tonight, if you want, I went down to the, building department and got copies of every easement that was in that file that they could find. I just couldn't find the letter from Judge Roberts. It should be, if you would like those, I'll give those to you tonight, because it changed hands 3 times between the Masons and the Hardy, but I have that. Sure.
You know, we have other places in town where there have been 4 bays put in and then not maintained. Just, we all know about this issue, but we need to find a way to make sure that we
Well, if
do
this
what
was
we
totally
say we're gonna
blacktop, you
do.
might not even be talking about that, you know, because you don't need a big, if you don't, you need a place or a catch basin, or
Yeah.
you need a sub pond to dig all this stuff out. If it was
But it would
blacktop,
it would
yeah.
still have to be maintained, or else it's gonna not.
It's like
be in
anything
use.
else, that's what
Yeah.
happens, you know, when these pipes.
Paving will certainly reduce the frequency that you need to do that maintenance.
Well, to make it
Like
a much
anything
simpler
you do,
process.
you need to-
And now your new piping now is all plastic, CMP, so there is no more rotting, and it's clear bore, which will handle a lot more, there's not rigidity to it on the outside. So that would be, and we can get the pipe for that, so we can keep the project costs.
Great.
Do a thing.
Thank you, guys.
Nice
Thank
job,
you.
Great
guys.
stuff, thank you very much.
Incidentally, while I've got Peter up there,
Oh, yes, sorry.
we might as well mention the fact that I'm going to take another look at some roads up in North Salem, which have just been done
Stone?
with oil and stone.
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed by what I saw the first time, and I want to do a trial run on a small road,
Yeah.
which is a dead end in my end
We
of
may
town.
have to do it, yeah.
North Salem, will, as you know, opened up the opportunity for us to
That's
go over
right.
there, and Peter Parsons and I, we all went over there. Now, their roads are really in good shape, the ones they were doing. They have one that was like one of ours, it was rough. But he did the next one next to it because it's in a development. It went
Which was
good,
the
it went
roughest
clean.
one? I'd like-
Excuse me?
I'd like to see the roughest
Me
one,
too.
because.
Well, they're off of Bogtown Road on 121.
So Bogtown area?
But this Thursday, I'll check tomorrow, Wednesday or Thursday, he's going to make sure there's no rocks or stone on it. What I was impressed about after they did it and rolled it, it's not like years ago when I was a kid here, and there used to be piles of rock and you
Yeah.
checked it. You have to look to find that, you know, there's, because the
No,
way
I-
it's put down now.
I'd like to have the names of the roads that were in the worst shape before they were done.
Yeah, well,
because that'd be
well,
more
there's
like-
two of them there, Deer Run coming in and Fox was the good one, it's in a development. The first one coming in was rough, and the other one was a good one. We spent some money on Wakeman Road, okay, and I would like to, if we agree on it, I think that's a good place to do it, it does not have a lot of traffic,
Give it a
and it
shot.
certainly will give us a time. I mean,
Yeah, let's
you can
see.
eventually do, you know, just like Trybrook. It's a whole different concept. That's why I want you to go over and take a look at it before we do it. It's not that expensive.
I'd like to, but I'd say, I want to
And I
make sure
think
I'm
it's a
looking
way, at least,
the right one.
look at the other
Yeah.
tool in the toolbox and see where we go with that. That's all I'm saying. Financially, it
put it
could
over
help
a
us.
nice road.
I'm not here to
Road that's not
advocate,
that bad.
well, let's don't overread road in town of Lewisboro. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying for the back roads and
Well,
stuff.
look, till the economy turns, we may have to
We
deal with
gotta
that.
do something right now. We're gonna
That's the
lose.
idea.
Yeah, we gotta hold on to what we have,
Right.
I think is what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to move on to the lease modification agreement with Adam Brodsky, Cross River. There
Anthony,
are,
you got a chance to look at it?
I did,
Any problems? I'm
yes.
sorry?
a few.
Okay. Let us know.
Do you want to take us through the, your comments, Anthony?
We're looking at it, everyone has it. Second page, top, paragraph 3,
Condition?
talks about as-is condition, but then right after that talks about landlord work. So we're not taking it as is condition if the landlord's doing work. So I just wanted to put up in that first paragraph, other than as stated below, we're taking it in as is condition, just to refer to the work.
Where would you add that? You add that at the end of the paragraph?
After the word landlord, before the word to on that last
Okay.
full sentence there.
Okay.
Roman numeral 2 at the middle of the page there. Second line, December 1st, 2012, subject to unavoidable delays, comma, then this phrase I have an issue with, but failure to complete the work within such period of time should not affect the validity of this lease. I mean, there should be a little bit more of putting the, feet to the fire, getting it done.
I'm sorry, should be more.
Holding your feet to the fire, getting the work done.
So should we
because
say
otherwise
time
it's
is of the
open-ended.
essence for us? Is that
I
valuable?
think we just strike that provision there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
clause,
was
but
not
failure
clear.
to through lease, we're gonna strike
But
out.
through lease.
I was
Okay.
trying to figure out when, it says, effective on that date, but if it's not ready, we're not paying rent, right?
That's not in here.
So that's not clear, right?
no,
Okay.
Oh,
So it
well,
wasn't just me.
It's clear, it's just not what we wanted to say. It says
Sorry.
the opposite.
The agreement between us is that I don't pay rent till I'm,
Okay.
can move
Right.
in.
That
Well,
has
the
to be.
agreement's gotta be.
All right,
right.
fine.
So
Okay,
no
good.
rent
That's why we
until
have-
complete.
I know.
And then paragraph, Roman numeral 4 at the bottom, I would suggest deleting. What was the issue? Or at least a portion of it. It's a number of waivers that I feel are not necessary. I think that the original lease contains language that's mutually agreeable to both parties. I don't see why it needs to be more restrictive in this amendment.
All right.
Page 3. Paragraph 5, just not necessarily an issue with the content, but it's not a complete sentence. I think two thoughts were mixed together without really making it make sense, so that just needs to be changed to read properly. And paragraph 6, I suggest striking.
Well, wait.
Paragraph 5, I want to
Finish
rewrite.
utilizing-
Yeah, that
You
makes
know
no
what?
sense to
I
me.
want to take 5 out. I mean, is that part of our consideration that we're
I don't know what it
providing
says.
a cop to the parking lot?
No.
I don't think
Right,
that's appropriate.
and there are kids that come through from the condos
Okay.
to school,
Yeah, but, well,
and if they choose
It's
to
just
walk
the
around the
park.
back,
yeah, but it's just.
Or if they
it's
park for
just
good reason
parking,
to
yeah,
use the
it's just
facility or
parking.
come to the.
It's about parking.
If they're coming from the meadows,
the
parking is
parking
not.
lot. Oh, wait,
From
I don't think
parking
it's
in
a
the
bad
parking
thing.
lot.
oh, from parking in the lot.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we should be doing that.
But we should, well, maybe we should be doing
Well,
it. We
what's the
shouldn't be legally
definition of
obliged to
lot
do
then?
it.
No.
The whole
And-
Because when we don't
shopping
do it,
center? What's the definition of the parking lot?
well, I'm sure it's the interior, whatever's in the survey. But I don't
The
think we
lot
should agree
immediately
to that.
outside the
We're
the
providing-
area utilized by the town, I would think. is how
We're
you
providing a
define it.
town service specifically to a private entity. I don't think we should be doing that.
Well, we want to encourage the kids to go park, else not park for the whole day.
And then he should hire a
look.
towing company. Then he hire a towing company.
He's having an issue where if then what would happen is then they start boycotting his stores and the stores of the store owners. Store owners are not happy with the kids parking there, but on the same note, if you start towing their cars,
They spend money there.
I think
Yeah,
there's a
they
rub
do,
there.
but I don't think
you
you can
know?
have the cake and eat it too. Either the kids are gonna park there, or no, they're not gonna.
Well,
park
but
there.
if it's not him that's having him towed, if it's the police that are actually patrolling the lot,
Can we do that?
I don't know.
It's not a municipal lot.
What I believe we can
I think you
do,
start to go down the road of policing private.
Yeah, no.
The problem.
But we can cite, we could cite if the signage is correct. They don't have a lot of correct signage up there, so I think Frank was asking him to put up the correct signage that's
Right.
visible, especially for handicap
Specifically the
parking.
handicap
Yeah.
spots. That seems to be the major problem. There's a lot of the day parking by students at John Jay, but.
So if that's the case, I would suggest taking it out. You just
Take it
work
out.
with the
Yeah,
landlord.
I agree with you.
Okay.
And then paragraph 6 on that same page, miscellaneous, 6A, I would suggest striking.
There's
It's
two
just-
sixes. There's 6 broker and 6 miscellaneous.
Yeah, it's misnumbered, 6 miscellaneous.
So 6A, you suggest we take
I would
out?
suggest we take out. It's
Yeah, I
a
agree
little
with that.
too much of an all-encompassing
I agree.
release there. That's it.
That's it.
All right.
So you need a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign release.
As amended by council.
Modification
As amended by
agreement.
council.
Yes, I didn't get there yet.
Sorry.
Between EK Cross River LLC and the town of Lewisboro as amended by council.
Second.
Discussion? John? You've been strangely silent.
I'm fine
All in
with
favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a resolution to approve the court applying for a grant of
$30,000.
$30,000 for furniture and other accoutrements.
They've done very well with these grants.
Sure.
They're not matching. Actually, if you take a look at all the furniture,
Yeah.
the seal,
They're
the
kind of
bench.
making us look a little bad, but.
Shabby, yeah, no kidding.
They've done very well
Usually
with,
that's
well,
discussion,
that's
we're already discussing.
opportunity with that.
All right.
I seconded, so that would be the
Oh.
discussion phase.
Oh, you seconded?
He
I
did.
second.
Great. Yes, I think we need to try to extend the grant writing skills of the court to other areas of the town.
I think they've done very well with this one. I want to just commend Justice Seedoff and Simon for this. They've done a great job, but yeah. Okay.
Discussion? Any more? All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go to the next one, which is, apparently the town board has to give approval when it's a fundraiser at Cyrus Russell Community House. This is a fundraiser, and we have been asked to give our approval.
We've done this one before.
And it has apparently been done at least
Right.
twice
Is the
before.
reading challenge one? What is this?
Reading
Reading
Dream.
Dream.
Reading
Heard any
Dream.
issues with
I
that?
make a motion to authorize Reading Dream to have their fundraiser on Saturday, January 19th, my birthday, 2013, as submitted and
Second.
reviewed by council.
Second.
All the discussion? All in favor?
Aye. My birthday's on a Saturday.
All right, finally,
No school for you, huh?
No school for me.
I would like to, Peter, are you still around? Because you're part of this too. I would like to try to modify the traffic pattern in the townhouse parking lot. There is an ever greater number of people who are using the townhouse parking lot as a shortcut. Furthermore, not just that do they use it as a shortcut, they're using it as a shortcut at speed. I have now nearly been hit 3 times in my car, coming in between Casper's and the townhouse, by a car coming straight over the top from Truesdale to come straight out where there's a one-way street against them. Peter, you have a problem with the highway department and similar type activity. Yeah.
The driveway of the highway department has become a thoroughfare. It says official vehicles only, no through traffic, and it's used by a lot of pedestrians, a lot of strollers, and a lot of bicyclists come up through the lake from there. And nobody's abiding by the signs, and they don't really pay attention at all. But what they're doing now is whipping through the townhouse and at full bore coming in. I mean, they're really, I'm afraid somebody's gonna cross and get whacked. My idea, and Peter and I talked about it, is on the far side, not this side right here in back of the townhouse, but as you come through our property down below the fence, putting up, like we did over in the Meadows, I mean, over in Golden's Bridge, put a cable across, a nice one, close the road, fire lane only, and leave walkways on both sides for strollers and bikes and walkers, but to restrict car traffic. Now, in the wintertime, if we needed it, we can undo it to go out with the truck if we had to. If there was an emergency, we'll make sure, although it's not registered as a road or anything like that, we make sure the keys, or the fire department would have one and the emergency services would have one. I'm just afraid somebody's going to get hurt down there, and it's just, the other thing we like to is put bigger sign, I don't want to get sign, like the place totally with signs, but maybe a little bigger signs like when they come in, says enter only. But maybe if they see this, they can't go down there, it'll eliminate the whole problem.
It's already no through traffic, right? So
Excuse me?
It's already no through traffic. So
yeah, but no, that's right. And
we
I'm
don't
just
take
saying, now I
action,
have to
just enforcing it.
take the initiative and say, we've got to make it happen.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all it is. It's a
Now-
driveway.
This can be done by resolution, except for the no fire, with a fire zone, no parking.
Yeah, you referenced putting a no parking fire lane sign on the street right in front of that entrance.
As they're coming up on both sides, right.
That would require adding that portion of that roadway to a section of your code, 21228, I think it is. But the rest of it, you could just do.
You could do it in 2 steps. Give me a resolution to start.
And then we'll just do the other.
Right. Give me a resolution and I'll get Joel, although he's busy, to get the polls in, we'll start.
You wanted to have a public hearing first?
No.
Well, I've got to have a public hearing on the fire.
We need a motion to let them do that, or no?
You can have them go ahead and do all the other things, except if you want to put the no fire lane, you have to.
I make a
do that
motion
by
to
code.
authorize the highway superintendent to put up stanchions and a cable with clear demarcation to officially close off the entranceway from the highway department from Truesdale Lake Road to the town campus.
Second.
If you're going to let the newspapers, we'll share that with the people.
Actually, it's called Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive.
As amended, a second.
Yep, as amended.
Discussion?
This is going to be very visible, nobody's going to come flying through there, and
Well, here's the other thing, what we have to do is, what we're going
That
to
is
do,
like clearly demarked.
what we're going to do before we put the cable up,
Yeah, good.
I'll put some portable stanchions up there, road closed ahead, before we even put the cable up. They run into the plastic stanchion, oh well, then we'll be okay. But it's going to just take getting people orientated
Can you
and
stand out there
signage.
for a while with a flag?
And I'm going to put a black chain on black poles, okay? So bicyclists can go on, no, but we'll have plenty of room for the walkers and the strollers. And then what we can do is make it wider up here. They got that old green gate that's up here. Looks kind of tacky. We could probably take that down and make it.
Cardboard cutouts of Peter.
Okay, all in favor?
Arm.
Aye.
Aye.
Second, I want
Aye.
to make a motion to have a public hearing on putting in the no parking fire lane on Lakeshore Drive.
What date?
And that will be
September 10th.
on
September 10th.
September 10th.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to make a motion to move into oh, no, I won't. I want to make some announcements, sorry. And I want to approve claims, too. Let's
Make a
do-
motion to approve the claims as submitted.
Second.
Discussion?
there's a Keller Plan Board Services thing here? Just curious. Oh, that's
Yes.
Planning Board? Okay.
Yes.
So that's separate from their base contract. All right.
And the other two are for work they've done on stormwater, which the board has already approved.
That's to do all the mapping on it?
Yes.
Okay.
No comments.
I have no comments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Announcements. That, first of all, there will be, I'd just like to remind people that the library fair will be held this year on Saturday, October the 29th, from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock at Honor True Farm.
October, September.
What did I say?
October.
Sorry. September. That it will be on, held on September 29th, 2012, from 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock at Honor True Farm. This is probably the biggest and most fun event of the year. And I'm hoping we will see you all there. I think that's about it. Ken Mastro has resigned as editor of the Ledger. If you didn't know. He is now going to work with JD.
And my wife.
And your wife. What are you doing? Putting together a family group down
I don't
there?
know.
All right. You were looking at me as if there was something else I needed to do.
You did the town board
meetings.
Oh. And then polling the board?
We're going to have a town board, we're going to have work sessions on Monday, September the 10th, and on Monday, September the 24th. Both will be at the Lewisboro Library. Dan, anything you want to say?
Nope.
John?
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing for the group.
Just want to wish Ken all the best in his new endeavors at Hewitt, Aon Hewitt. I just want to thank all of our camp summer staff and employees and our entire Parks and Rec department for another well-run camp season, and the pool season is drawing to a close, but I want to thank everybody for all their hard work this summer out there. And I also want to give a big thank you to the South Salem Fire Department and all of our fire departments, but especially South Salem, just recently with the carnival, and our police department and all the work that they did on parade night, and for putting on a fantastic carnival for the town.
I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session. Discussion, we're to discuss litigation.
Second is amendment.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.